Welcome to this program on returning to original goodness. I have to apologize that I didn't turn on the recording for the first 5 minutes, so the meditation and the opening is missing. I hope you will forgive me for that and enjoy this recording of our session today. So I will be doing another one soon, and I hope you all will join us. Thanks so much, and please enjoy this recording. Anyway, see how the words disappear like that? It's like whoosh, it's gone, but you can feel the connection deepening already with the people here. There's a like-mindedness. So, like with the not recording, everything that happens in our life from a mystical, from a cultural mystic's perspective is that I can meet that and grow and evolve and expand whatever's happened. Any crisis, any joy, any horror, our traumas, all the things that we carry from the past, they're all opportunities for us to evolve and expand and grow. And so, I'm saying that kind of to open. And I want to say a little bit about what I mean by, I used to call it essential goodness. So many of you have studied with me know that I've been talking about essential goodness forever. Um, but I realized one day I was talking to um, Matthew Fox, and we were talking about original sin in one of my radio shows. And I went, no, it's original goodness. St. Augustine really got it wrong, or actually probably got it quite right, because original sin, that we were born bad, and that we have to be controlled. That's a great way to justify genocide, to get taxes and to control the masses. But it isn't for an enlightened culture. That isn't the way we're going to have an enlightened culture. So this whole notion from the 3rd century of St. Augustine and original sin, and the whole issue around original sin, it's in our culture, in our cultural field. And it's kind of like the Protestant work ethic. That's another thing that's in the field. But we have this amazing capacity that we're born with, and we can tap into it at any time. And that is the path of the mystic, and the path of contemplation, prayer, and meditation. So I've started to talk, and I can't even remember what I wrote in the um, intro, but there were questions there. So first of all, I just want to ask, one more thing I want to say. I am a non-marketer. I'm not a very good marketer. In fact, I'm a terrible marketer. I do it all the wrong way. I've tried to do it the way that I spent thousands of dollars to learn how, and it's so inauthentic that I can't handle it. So uh, the traditional way of selling something to people is to create urgency, fear, and lack, and that is not what I'm about. I would like to invite you all to join the Next Way of the Mystic course. It's an amazing course. Some of the people here have done it and are on it, or on the advanced course. So that's not a hidden agenda. That's something that I want you to know. I'd love to have you join the Way of the Mystic course, and we might talk about that. But I'm really more interested in each interaction that we have together, and what kind of difference can it make. Many of you may have read the letter that I sent out. I don't know if you did. If not, write me and I'll send it to you, from the retreat last weekend. But to give you a little background of me, I'm a trauma survivor, a lot of trauma, from suicide, murder, abuse, war, pretty much all of them I've managed to survive for 75 years somehow, in all of that. And And I now really see that what a gift all of those things were to me. And I'm not being Pollyanna about it. I wouldn't wish some of the things that I had in my life to happen to anyone. But the other side of that is that meeting those traumas and being able to work with them, and that's the work, as many of you know, I do trauma integration and facilitation around that. um, Meeting those traumas and those frozen parts of us is how we awaken to our original goodness, our essential self that we're born into. And we can talk more about that and get more into it. But I'd like to hear from a couple people. Like, what's on your mind? What had you join this call? Let's just jump in because this is meant to be a dialogue, not a diatribe. There's no death worse than being talked to death. So, and Gail has her hand up. So, Gail, please, let's hear from you.
Said, I'm really glad you're talking about the mystic because it seems like that is what's needed at this time. We've been in a collective energy of the warriors for so long that we need to bring back the balance. In the same way nature seeks balance, we need to step up in our mystic archetypal patterns and take the responsibilities that we've internalized, that we've really had challenges with since the time of Plato, and going back to the myth of Cassandra and Apollo. I'm so glad that you're encouraging the mystic in all of us, the mystic and the sage, to step up. Michael, please do everything you can to support us in this challenging time.
Lovely. Oh, thank you, Gail. That's so great. My screen froze there. What was I frozen for other people or just for myself?
You were frozen.
I was frozen. Yeah. Okay. Um, I hope that my moving outside didn't cause a break in the internet. But I love what you said, Gail, and I'm very. I had a very close friend who was an Irish priest. His name was John O'Donoghue. Maybe some of you know him. And John used to always call us all mystics, and I thought, why is he calling, this was years ago, why is he calling us mystics, and because I had the idea of a mystic as someone who sat in a cave and removed themselves from life to meditate, contemplate, and pray. And I thought, that's great, but there's stuff that needs to be done in the world, and and then through Thomas Hubel and some other people, I realized, no, a contemporary mystic is one who does all those things in the culture, in what's happening, doesn't remove oneself from the difficulties. In fact, the difficulties are not in the way of our evolution, they are the way of our evolution. And so taking that stance has made a huge difference in my own practice and the work with integrating trauma and healing, really. And when I say healing, I'm not talking about fixing. When I say healing, I'm talking about wholeness, that there are parts of us that early on get frozen. We have many of you know about attachment theory, but it's I find it in my work constantly is, we're born into this world and we have caregivers and parents, and we're born into the world, and we go out. I've written about this before, some of you have heard it before, but we go out as a child, as a baby. We go out and we you know uh, explore, and we learn, and we touch, and we feel things. And then the dog barks, and we run back and say, mommy, I'm scared, and in a secure relationship, which nobody has all the time, but in a mostly secure relationship, mommy puts her arms around, the child and says, "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay to be scared. I get scared sometimes. Come here." And she whispers in her ear and says, how much she loves her, and the nourishment that we need to develop is happening. But that's not always the case. Many times, a child will go away and get scared, and I'll use the father, but it's not gender biased. That somebody gets um, scared because there's something else happens, and comes running to father, and father's just got home from work and he's tired and he's trying to figure out how he's going to pay the bills, and child comes, "Daddy, I'm scared, I'm scared." And daddy just says, "Go away, I don't have time, I'm working on this thing." "No, but daddy, I'm really scared." "There's nothing to be scared about. Quit being a baby." It's a baby, but you quit being a baby. you know and so the child then says, "Well, wait, my caregiver says I'm not supposed to be scared, but I am scared. So something must be wrong. I must be bad because I'm not going to make my survival figure responsible for, I can't cut off from my survival person." It's exactly what happens, and it creates the structure. This is the kind of thing we work with in the mystics way of the mystic, and the advanced mystics course. We go really deep into this, but um, but it's got the simplicity of it is exactly that, and that creates a separation. It's called an insecure attachment. And so there are other definitions, but I'm just simply talking about it in a secure and an insecure. And so that is the basis of, we have an identity that gets shaped. And you can see the difference in how the two identities get shaped. Our identity is our story, our dialogue. It's not who we are, but it's our story. And the thing about our story is that we come to see it as reality. It is our reality. We see through the lens of our story, and it shapes everything we see, everything we do, and it creates certain patterns of how we meet the world. And this is just the very basics of it. I'm trying to get a sense of, so that original goodness and that divine nature and soul's purpose gets covered up with a story that becomes a personality, and that personality evolves from this very basic structure outward. And so we lose sight of our original goodness. We say, "I'm bad, I'm unlovable, I'm not enough." All of these things that we say in those early ages becomes our identity. And then we create ways to overcome that. We have habitual ways. I get really strong and forceful, or I hide, or I get really good at something that'll get me attention. Um, we have all these habitual patterns that are all part of our narrative, our story, which is not who we are. And so when we get locked into this story, we fall into the mechanistic view of, I'm an object in a world of objects. So I'm over here, the story keeps us, I'm over here and you're over there. But look, we've got people from all around the world right here, and we're connected. And one of the things we do in the Mystics course is we actually practice. And you would be amazed at how competent people have gotten, particularly in the advanced course, of being able to see yourself, seeing the other person, seeing you, and be able to feel the emotions that the other person is having and actually locate them in the other person's body. That's very possible. So this sense of separation is a myth. It's a lie, and it keeps us stuck in this place where we're separate, and something's wrong, and we need to fix that. So the narrative says, well, work hard, try to fix it. Well, the more we try to fix something and we aren't with what's happening, the more we're stuck in that. The more we try to get rid of our pain, the more we have the pain. The more we work at our evolution. Yes, we'll learn things. That's why I said earlier, yeah, it's not about the information. There's something much more powerful when we're touching into this, to our divine nature, to that place that is our soul's calling. That it and when we begin to integrate those parts of our story that have been suppressed energy. So you could look at those early incidents as times we've disassociated from our true self, times we've taken energy and we've pushed those things down. And just realizing the sun is coming in on me here. I'm going to move back just a little bit. And so we have the capacity, though, to integrate that. So what happens is that parts of our essential goodness get frozen. Something gets stuck in our body. It's literally in our body. When you think about what does stress mean? What does anxiety, depression, what does that come from? Those are words that kind of obfuscate and hide what's actually happening. What's really happening is something is too much that's larger than my capacity to hold it because of all the times I've shut down. So when I'm stressed, it means something is too much. You can feel it in your body. There's a compression inward. There's a pulling inward. And so what happened, and it's literally space. We need space. We need more space. How do we get more space? By allowing things to be exactly, precisely the way they are and the way they're not. And when we do that, when we practice going into those painful experiences from the past, first it'll be a thought or an emotion, but ultimately it's in the body. And we actually can, an analogy some of you heard me say is about, you buy a chicken, you go to the store, you buy a chicken, you don't want to eat it right now, so you put it in the freezer. You put the chicken in the freezer, and it takes a lot of energy to freeze it. And then it has to keep giving energy to keep it frozen. If your power goes out, your chicken thaws, right? Well, we got a lot of chickens that we're carrying around in us, and they're frozen, and it takes a lot of energy. So how do you thaw all those frozen chickens? You thaw the frozen chickens by giving them the love and attention that they didn't get at an earlier time. They're just trying to be seen, to be heard, to be felt, to be experienced, to be loved and nurtured, because that's our birthright. That's our original goodness, is to be loved and to be nurtured. And so these will often be traumas that we have, and we don't want to go there. Our mind, again, our narrative, our story has only one purpose, and that's its own survival. It's a tape loop that we constantly build on. And so our narrative is looking to survive, and it will play all kinds of tricks. That's what spiritual bypassing is. That's what, how we suppress things in our life. So we really need to go to the body. We really need to identify and see those parts of us. But there's nothing wrong. There is absolutely nothing about you that needs to be fixed, and there is nothing broken. And many of you know I've been saying that for a long time, but people are starting to actually hear it, that there really isn't anything. I mean, it's great to have therapy to work with things and things like that, but oftentimes that puts us more and more in the tape loop. The real work is to work by being precise about what's happening in the moment, in our bodies now. And the more that we can do that and love those frozen chickens, those parts of us that we just weren't able to accept before and to love, then they start to dissolve and you get that energy back. When people talk about soul loss, that's all that is soul loss, is frozen parts of ourselves that are numbed, are frozen. And so a lot of hands just went up. So let's answer some, let's interact with some. So Gail, I think your hand was up from before, right?
Right. Yeah. If this is the place where we can share some mystic experiences that have come
Let's
recently.
let's share in clarification first before we do that. So
Okay.
let's do that first and take some people who the questions. So Angela, you made it.
Okay.
Yay. Want to unmute yourself?
Yes, I did. I did. Thank you.
Hi, Angela.
Hi there. So I don't know, maybe I'm off topic. Like when I put my hand up to share, it was more so for your original question, but I agree 100% about with everything that you just said. And the reason why I wanted to join this call is because your questions really spoke to me. Years ago, I did take that shamanic training course that you offered.
Uh-huh.
And there's so many times that I still actually go back to that visual where we did this. There was like, I don't know, like a group meditation where we go to this place and have this big celebration, and there's a big bonfire, and it was the meditation that you did. And I go there often.
Oh.
And it really helps me. But I find like with this whole, I've been working from home and my work has gone to a point where I'm like working 10-hour days and I feel like I'm getting separated from who I really am. And my work, where I work, it's an amazing company, and their philosophy is 100% diversity and inclusion. And they say that we want you to bring your whole self to work so that you can be your best self. And for so many years, I always felt that I had to be a corporate person. Then I was a very separate from that. I was a very spiritual person, and those two never met.
Mm.
And so now I'm like slowly introducing the elements of my spirituality and my beliefs, which are so far out because everybody here, I'm in Saskatchewan, and everybody here is like very Catholic. So not that there's anything wrong with Catholics. I was Catholic when I was younger, anyways, or baptized that way. But it's when you say something, people just kind of look at you and whatnot. And your questions really spoke to me because I thought, okay, this is maybe a way that I can start to integrate my whole self and into just like one personality, not be separated, and be happy. Because when I'm separated, so much stuff comes up, like illness, trauma, all that crap. And I don't want that. So yes. Anyways.
Yeah, so well said what you said. We do that. We compartmentalize our life. I came out of the corporate world and know very well what you're talking about, and that separation, and then the separation in our community with different people's belief. One question I have for you, Angela, is: do you have a meditation practice?
I meditate daily, but it's kind of like whatever I feel like I do transcendental meditation. I'm not religious with that, and a lot of times I do guided meditation. I love the Insight Timer app. It's my sanity thing, but I need to be a little bit more regular with it because it's
well, you don't need to do anything in particular, but what a meditation practice, a regular practice, people try to fit the practice into your life. After a while, it's like fitting your life into the practice, because that's where those things get resolved. There's a place where that shifts. I'm not no longer trying to fit my practice into my life. My life is my practice. Just
I like
because of
that.
what you're saying with particularly working in the kind of environment you are. The other thing I wanted to say to you is, the Catholic mystics are amazing. If you study the Catholic mystics, you can like be right there with where they are and actually bring them back to reality. But you have to know, all the different aspects of um, Saint John, Teresa of Avila, so many amazing mystics in the Catholic tradition. My friend John O'Donohue, was, and Matthew Fox, I think, originally was Catholic also, originally. So, there's a bridge there. There's always a bridge with how to work with um, that real difference in how we meet someone who has a very different opinion, a very different worldview than us. And the other thing is to really inquire into and try to learn more about their perspective rather than try to have yours on them. Because if you go back to what I was talking about, developmental, the most important thing in development is being seen and heard. And most of us don't feel seen and heard. And so if you can be a space of seeing and hearing people without adding, without putting your judgments or your 2 cents on it, you'd be amazed at people will go, what's going on with Angela here? You didn't say a word and they're going, I really like this Angela person. I wonder what she's up to, and that's what begins to happen. But it's seek first to understand, and those separations. Right now, this is the most important thing that we need to be doing on the planet, is cultivating a deep understanding of what someone like a Trump went through, and be able to see what's motivating. You don't have to agree, you don't have to buy in, but it's really important that all the people, and I don't usually get political, but all the people that are um, supporting Trump are so disenfranchised and feel so abandoned, that to know that and have compassion for that part, no matter what they're doing, is really important, because we see them in us. And those of you who study with me know I'm always saying, whatever I'm seeing out there is in me. It isn't out there. There's no separation. It's in here. And the more I can feel what you're feeling, the more I can see what you're seeing, the more we have a connection. And that connection takes us to our essential goodness. That's how we build, because essential goodness is really, it's a deep sense of presence, which is the same thing as saying it's love. But presence is love. The more present I can be in the moment, the more I can uh, very clearly articulate this moment, the more the separation will dissolve, and I will be able to see things in others and feel and understand things in others, and feel that in my own body. And even works online, if you're working online, it I'm actually finding, at first I was like, oh, I really miss working with people. you know I love working a room with people and being with the energy of that. I really like that and I miss it. But at the same time, I've found that there's certain things that working on Zoom can provide, that, like in a corporate setting, for instance, where I worked a lot of years, the veil of familiarity is too heavy, too all encompassing to break out of that. Whereas in a community like this and doing these dialogues like this, we really get to connect at a much deeper level. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying.
Absolutely, I found the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. I actually forgot how to say it already. It's Dini. Say
Hi. Yes, it's Deanie.
Dini. Okay. Okay. Good.
Yes.
Good. Hi, Dini.
Hi. I was drawn to this because I read your letter about your experience over the weekend, dealing with the trauma, and I agree, and I hear everything you're saying. The part of me that's really challenged is so I work for an environmental group, and I'm really challenged when I see all the data and I see the photos of the plastics in the whales and the fish, and and then, with all the wildfires, all these beings being lost, like I don't know how to deal with that trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm a lifelong environmentalist and was very active. My radio show, as you probably know, is Environmental, Social Justice, and Spiritual Authors. And it was, it, I actually left mainstream environmental activism because I felt it was creating more separation and more anger, um, and more divisiveness, um, and trying to shove the data down people's throat was not working. I worked a lot on climate justice and social justice. And that was kind of, for a while, I was focusing my attention really there. Ultimately, I realized that the only thing that's going to save us is a spiritual awakening. And so that's where I'm putting my attention at this point, and why I teach mysticism in the way of the mystics and cultural mysticism, is so that we can develop the capacity to hold it all and recognize in the smallest ways how we contribute to that. The way we live our life, the things that we do, and no matter how much, there's still a contribution. Driving a car is a contribution, taking a shower, there's so many ways that we contribute. And that's not to say to beat ourselves up or to make ourselves wrong or anything, but it is to develop compassion towards the addiction to the use of energy, particularly fossil fuels, which is the main driver, and to try to connect at a deeper level with people. And I think that's one of the gifts of COVID, is it's allowed us to separate and get closer at the same time. To separate from just the everyday. People say, "Oh, I can't wait for it to get back to normal." God forbid it gets back to normal, because the normal that we're talking about is based on a false premise, and that is that you can have continuous growth with finite resources and an economic system that drives that. Um, and so we really have to heal that part of us. Thich Nhat Hanh has a wonderful poem and several other poems like that. Also, The Guest House by Rumi, but Thich Nhat Hanh has, I think it's called I Am That, and he talks about being the pirate that rapes the girl and the girl that's raped, and all, and recognizing himself in each of those places. And I think, you know, like I had to come to grips with my anger towards what was happening, um, to the planet, as somebody who deeply cares about that and who prays every day to the elements, and sings to them every morning and meditates, on those things. So it's really difficult. And yet our way, the way of awakening, is through the difficulties. How will I meet the difficulties in my life? Because each of the difficulties and challenges that we meet is a portal into wholeness. And when I say wholeness, I'm not just talking about one person's wholeness. I'm talking about the wholeness of the cosmos, everything. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
I don't know if it's helpful, but it's the only thing that I see there is to do at this point, and continue to do our deep work, like the letter that I wrote. You know, putting myself in the heart of the world, and then feeling all of that, and then the recognition. You know, life wants to live. I want to trust life, and to trust life, I have to surrender pretty much everything and quit grasping, including, you know, my activism can become a barrier to, you know, that's what I had to realize. My activism was causing separation and actually adding to the problem. So I had to be an inner activist rather than an outer activist.
That's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful question. A very important question too. Simon, how about Simon? Let's chat.
Hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
I can't see you. You're very fuzzy, but I can hear you.
Okay. I'm from the UK. I'm talking to you from down on the south coast, where it's about 9 o'clock at night at the moment.
Right.
And I very much enjoyed what you've been saying. It makes a lot of sense to me. I just wanted to ask you around trauma, I think today is a day of suicide awareness, international suicide awareness. And I guess, you know, my personal involvement is that my son committed suicide 3 years ago.
Sorry.
And it's interesting you mentioned John O'Donohue, because I've been listening to David White, the poet, who knew John O'Donohue as well, and he talks a lot about that. Well, he talks about belonging, the house of belonging, and this kind of finding yourself. And I guess a reflection, really, rather than a question, was something around what you're talking about, this coming home to myself in a way that actually is the goodness. And to me, that is a kind of belonging. It's a sense of almost kind of everything dropping away, and a deep sigh of relief that actually I found my place in this world, you know, even if it's messy and it's not settled particularly. But so my question was really about from your trauma, your experiences growing up, what is it? What is that thread of connection that pulls people back from that edge of despair? And I say that because I ask that because so many younger men, particularly here in the UK, and I'm guessing elsewhere in the world, are killing themselves early. So I just I'm asking from a place from the heart, I hope, and a place of hope as well, hearing your words.
Yeah, I have some things to say. I don't know that I have any answers, Simon, but I certainly have lots of questions. First of all, I wanted to say something about belonging, because this is a huge issue. It's an issue that when somebody talked to the Dalai Lama about it, he couldn't even understand how that could be. Because, you know, that's something we have to realize. We belong. We're here. You can't not belong. You're here. And no matter what happens, you could be shunned out, like some friends I've had in religions have been shunned. But you belong here because you're here. And so that whole conversation is kind of something that is only entertaining the ego, the identity with that. Now, there is so much pain and trauma that is unexpressed. And suicide, when I was 2.5, I found my mother hanging, committed suicide. That was one of my first major, well, it wasn't my first major trauma, but it was a pretty early major trauma. And it really shaped my life. But if that hadn't happened, and she was at Pearl Harbor with my father, both of them were in the military, um, and so just imagining, uh, being where it's raining bombs constantly, how that can affect someone. And for many of these young people, uh, they they have no sense of a future, and we live in a culture that is time bound to chronological time. That's not the only kind of time there is, but we're bound to chronological time. We believe that there's a past and there's a present and there's a future, and that we start in the past and we go to the future. But it's really a myth. Um, we have all kinds of evidence because, like, I got gray hair now and I'm balding, and I didn't have that at 2. But that's only one kind of time, and it's not the mystical time, and it's not the quantum time. The Greeks had 2 other words for time. That was kairos, which is it's the right time. It's an idea whose time has come. It's an emergent future in the present. It's always in the present, and that kind of time. And then there's got a blank on. It's not infinity. I forgot the third type of time, but that's kind of like um, uh, the ocean of time. That all time, that time is like an ocean, and then there's the waves that happen, and we're the waves happening in the ocean. But and this is pretty much what the mystics have been trying to say, and what quantum physics is absolutely um, continuing to confirm more and more, this sense of that. So um, the past that we have in ourselves is now, and it's the frozen past. It's the past that hasn't been integrated, and that's the remembered past. It's not even the real past, because it's the remembered past. So the remembered past is not even what happened. I found my mother hanging. What story did I make up about it? That's what shapes us. It wasn't the suicide. It was the story that I made up. I was bad. It was my fault. And that shaped most of my earlier life. That everything that happened, I was bad and it was my fault. So I tried to go unconscious to it. I tried, alcohol and drugs and all those different things, went through that whole phase. So what to do about it, and I'm sorry for your loss. That's a huge, I just, it's such a huge thing to bear, and it will continue to be something. And yet it can also be a teacher for you when you think of your son, to inform you as to why are you here, what is your work, what does his absence open up in your presence, I guess is a way to say it. And that's a hard thing to do. And it takes this kind of willingness to feel everything. My wife was killed when I was young. My daughter was 4. The same thing. I sat in the funeral parlor and I couldn't cry. I wanted to cry, but I could not cry because I'd had so many trauma things happen in my life. So it took me years to integrate the trauma of that. Um, so, and it doesn't have to be big things either. It can be, I was leading a workshop at Esalen once, and there was a woman that was just interrupting people who had really serious traumas all the time, and she had this lovely life. And it turned out when we worked with her that she felt guilty because her parents escaped the Holocaust, and so she had to keep, interfering with life because she had all this guilt she carried, and she had lived pretty much a perfect life, given everything, best schools and all of that. So you never know what's going on with others, but the more we cultivate our own inner awareness and presence, the more love we have, and that allows us to connect more deeply. And in the field of your having a meditative, a prayer, a contemplative practice, we don't realize that's not for us. I mean, it's great. It does great things, but it's really for the world that we're creating that. That is, when I was talking about being the heart of the world, that's what I'm saying, is the more you can embrace about yourself, the more the space around you. And Angela, this is something, for the corporate world too. This is what I tried to do, was the more I worked on myself, I became a space for other people to be able to feel more, to be more present. They could feel something that resonated with them. So, in that sense, as horrible as it is to lose a child, Simon, it can be something that can really be a gift to all the people whose lives you touch by the way you work with it and deal with it and meet it and integrate it into, the horror and the pain and the guilt and all of those things that come up around it. That's why we do, I don't know if you know Tonglen, we take in the dark energy and we purify that in Tonglen kind of meditations. First get a meditation practice, and then we'll do Tonglen together. So, how does that resonate with you, Simon?
Thank you, Michael. Yes, that does indeed, and I do have a regular meditation practice, and I just, very much what you've said. I feel like my son would be blessing me and telling me to get on with life. There's plenty out there, plenty to do, and lots of love. So yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Let's see, Maureen. Hi, Maureen. It's good to see you.
Hi. A few things. As far as your questions go, I was thinking about how faith or spirituality or whatever, that's what's getting us really what we need to develop to get through and develop more of our awareness into the next phase of where we're going. Our mind and our ego just aren't going to get us there. Yeah. And about integrating, I'm finding that I'm, and about compassion especially, I've been working these past few months on developing more of a meditation practice, but it's been difficult because as somebody with complex PTSD, being in my body's hard. And meditation has been triggering for me in the past, but I've been working through that. Integrating everything from my past, the good and the bad, working on that, and integrating, like, my spiritual path has been quite varied as I started off, raised as a Catholic child and then developing to where I'm at now, and all the things that I've learned along the way, and some things I've sort of dropped off and they're coming back to be integrated in a new way. So it's kind of like there's this whole big integration happening, and I don't know if that's true for a lot of people, but I'm finding that the need to develop compassion and, like you were saying, work on myself to be that space for others has become really important to me. And developing more of who I am. But I was also wondering if you could talk a little bit more about, like, when you're explaining about the trauma and the frozen spots in your body and being in your body, if you could explain that a little bit more for me, because I need to be able to do that more. And, I have the opportunity to, to work on some of the traumas, but I don't want to go into that loop like you were talking about either.
Yeah.
So if you could just explain a little bit more, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, a couple things you said. One of the things that stops people from a regular meditation process is that we start meditating and it's kind of like, ooh, I'm in nirvana, I'm calm, everything's fine, and then wham, all of a sudden, there's wild stallions in your mind, and you can't sit still, and it's just like, energy running through you, and it's just too much. Well, that's actually a good meditation. uh, as Pema Chodron says, the bad horse is actually the good horse. Why is that? Remember, I talked about when we meditate, we create more space to hold more. So when you begin a meditation practice, and at first it seems really nice and you're getting calm, and then all hell breaks loose, that's because you've made space for those traumas to be seen and felt. And so that's why I say difficulties are the way, these difficulties that come up. So trauma healing, you do it a little bit at a time. You titrate it, is the word that's often used. But in meditation, know when you think, now I'm having a bad meditation, that's exactly the meditation that you should be having. And we need to learn to be grateful for what we see and to be grateful for what remains unseen, because it's a childhood wounding that, or a childhood gift that shut down. Our nervous system is very intelligent. When it's too threatening and too overwhelming, it will shut down a part of us so we can keep on keeping on. That's the whole issue there. And so when you're meditating, those things will come up and traumas will come up. Now, I do have to say that we can't change our mind with our mind. And when you're very stuck in a narrative, I can't suggest more of being in community. We have a meditation weekend coming up on the 3rd. I'm also going to add the meditation weekend to the Way of the Mystic course as a bonus, if you're interested in doing that. Because there's an exponential, and I wrote about that in the letter I sent out, there's an exponential opportunity for healing when you're in a community that could take years of solo meditation that you can get in a relatively short time. I mean, our advanced mystics group has been, 3 months now, I guess, and they're actually, it's amazing how connected everybody is. They wouldn't miss it. Most of them would never miss a call. It's the highlight of their life to be able to be in community and do the work together. So that kind of answers your other question about trauma integration. One that's a titrated, a slow process. When you have all that energy running through you, in the letter I sent to you, I think I told you my legs were going like this, and I kept trying to stop them. And then I realized, no, Spirit said, don't stop it. That energy wants to release. I went, oh, so like for a half an hour, I was just like this with trying to face and deal with, bring myself in a state of presence with each trauma that came up for me. And then it expanded out into the world. So, yeah, I don't know what more to say about trauma other than it doesn't mean something's broken. It means something's working. That it's being held for you until you're ready to open to it, to love it, to embrace it, to put that 5-year-old on your lap and say, Maureen, I love you so much, and I know that was really hard for you when that happened, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, and I love you, and you made it this far. So, just know that I'm here, and give the child what the child didn't get at that time. So yeah, thank you. Thanks, love. That's really good. Blessings. Let's see. How are we doing? Oh, we're good. Okay. Patricia. How about Patricia?
Did that work?
There you are.
I'm muted. Okay, thank you.
Hi.
I think this is really going to tie in with something else that was said. The frozen chickens are in body memory, and a lot of it, and meditation and many other forms of release have helped, except specifically in two ways. I think a lot of our trauma is very cumulative, but where my body memory seems to be stuck and I can't seem to find any way to release, except to some extent a masseuse had learned tapping, and that kind of helped. But my particular stuckness is I gave my husband CPR. He was already dead, but I gave it to him until the first responders came here. So I have a lot of body memory in my actual breathing. And when the triggers come, I just don't know how to release it. And yet is it patience? Is it time? But the second piece of it is, because this all went on for hours, holding him in my arms as rigor mortis was setting in, and feeling that beloved body become rock in my arms. It's almost like, but it's here. It's near my heart. It feels like I can hardly let go. So for me, it feels like my body is so stuck in a couple of pretty important places that I want to be able to release it, because I know it blocks the flow of love through me.
Yeah. First of all, I'm sorry for your loss of your husband, and that obviously was very difficult and very traumatic. So I just want to say that. The other thing I want to say is you can't do it. Unfortunately, that's more of the ego and the mind.
Okay.
So the mind cannot do this. It's really a softening into whatever parts of it. So if you went back to the memory of that experience, and you felt that in your body, and you worked with a felt sense, really zooming in to the body and allowing all of that to come up, allowing yourself to grieve, to really grieve. This insanity is in our culture about, well, you've been 6 weeks, you should stop grieving your loss and get on with life. It's insane. You grieve as long as you need to grieve, and that means your body gets to grieve. So, and you mentioned the breath, and I think that's a really important point that you bring up. The breath is very reliable, and the breath contains the echoes of all of our traumas. And as you really tune to the breath, you can feel the traumas. They're a little like on the in breath, or a little on the out breath. Those places are traumas. They're held in your body. So you use the breath to explore that and go into and let it lead you into the body. The breath is a cycle you can rely on much more than your memory and your mind. The breath is really, and you can take the breath to those areas, and the energy flows where the breath goes. So you bring your awareness and your breath to those places, I can feel, the stuck places in your chest just being with you right here. You feel that? There's a contraction right there in your chest. And if you can allow yourself to just breathe into that and just really be precise about your attention, and anything that's a thought about it or anything that's a memory about it, that is not accessing the body. That is going back into the mind. And of course, the fear will send us back there. So you have to come back to the breath, back to the spot, go into that spot, and you can literally, as you breathe into it, feel it begin to release. And it may take a long time to release. There's a lot attached to it. So yeah, so I just have a lot of compassion for that. And you need to have a lot of compassion for what you've been through, and all, not just the loss of your husband, but all of your earlier difficulties and traumas and areas. So it comes down to just loving everything that arises within you, and then that comes to loving everything that's outside of you eventually, because there's no inside and outside ultimately. It's really, we're mostly space, and most people are focused on form. That's what grasping is in meditation, is we're grasping for form, and what we need to do is open to space rather than the grasp. Thoughts are grasping. They're things that we hold on to. You'll have a thought, and the next, and then it'll be going on, oh, you met somebody, oh, you like this person, oh, maybe this is the person I'll marry, what happened when I marry them, oh, we'll have, oh, oh, where was I? We go on these journeys, and that's all just grasping onto stories. And so I think, Patricia, if you work with your breath, that and really trust your breath, trust the echoes in the memory of the breath. That's what I would say. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Michael. I believe it was.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And there's another Maureen here. That's not Maureen Jones. Do you want to join us?
Hi, Michael.
Hi. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Splendid. It's a beautiful day on the Sunshine Coast, and I'm talking to all these lovely people. How could it be better?
There you go. There you go. There you go. I'm in Ireland.
Ah, lovely. Did you know John?
I actually encountered him in Colorado.
Ah, lovely.
Because he was touring with Noreen Narian.
Oh, I love Noreen. Yeah, she is amazing, isn't she? Woof.
She is.
A little package of gold there, of precious. Yeah.
Incredible voice. Incredible voice.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say I appreciate being here. I took a 5-week workshop with you some years ago on.
Thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, on overwhelm.
Yes.
I still visit overwhelmed sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about what you were saying about activism.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get stuck in that, and being over here and watching what's going on in my home country, I've found really difficult. Mm-hmm. But it's hooked me, so I'm attached, and I recognize that, and what I'm doing and what I have been introduced to is to be present with the earth. To be present with the earth. And I have the sense that the earth could heal herself, but we're part of the earth. So supporting that healing process when we can. And I was very, very fortunate to encounter a group of people called the Mamos, the Tayuna people from Colombia.
Don't know them.
There's a movie called La Luna. No, it's called Aluna, A-L-U-N-A. They're a very ancient culture, rainforest tribe. And they see absolutely no separation between themselves and the earth. And the whole purpose of their culture is to take care of the mother. But I think that's, and I've been a student of Thich Nhat Hanh. You and I've talked about that before. So
Right. Yeah.
so I go back and forth between, oh, please, Mr. T, can we move on? But recognizing that Mr. T is me, you know, which is really difficult, really tough. And then all the people that I've lost are actually alive in me, and how to talk with them. So just trying to find some balance. I mean, so I just wanted to share that about being present to the earth and being present with the earth. And when I get into a really tight space, I'm fortunate enough where I'm living now that I have some woods nearby.
Yeah.
And I go walk. And I do walking meditation. And I've kind of disrupted my meditation practice, which I'm a little bit ashamed of. But I actually made this move more or less permanent in December. So I'm trying to remember that too is a shock. Not many people move 5,000 miles when they're 70. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one. So I just wanted to say hello and just share that piece about being present with the earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And let the earth be inside of me.
Yeah.
And offer her my love, and offer her. And this is part of the Tayuna culture, is make offerings to the earth to the debt that we owe her.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. In Quechua, they call that Aini, sacred reciprocity.
Yes.
Honoring that.
Yep.
I'm really blessed here on the coast to have an outside shower. So every morning I sing my prayers to the earth and the elements.
Perfect.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's great.
So
Good to
thank
see
you.
Maureen. Thank you.
Good to see you, and I appreciate your teachings, and I appreciate being here.
Thank you so much. And I really
you.
want to invite you all to participate in any of the programs. You know, I do a lot of free programs. The Way of the Mystic is the basic program I offer. I'm including in it the retreat. You can do the retreat alone on October 3rd, I believe. And I wanted to, if it's all right with you, just show you maybe, Deborah, could you put the link to the Way of the Mystic course in the chat there? But I wanted to show you. Let me just find it here real quick.
Yeah, I have, but I'll add it again now.
Okay, great, thanks. So let me share screen, and I'll just I really like the Marielle did this wonderful flyer here, and it's been updated. But so the emphasis here is really on the embodied. It's an embodied approach to personal and planetary healing, and you know, it's coming up. I think it's 2 days. There's still 2 days left before we go to the full price of it. And like I said, I've added an extra, the $100 Saturday meditation in that price too. So that's kind of a bonus there. So we're going to be working with triggers and upsets and disturbances that keep us from feeling whole, and working with aligning the emotions and the thoughts and the physical experience. So we have, my teacher Gabriella used to say, we're trizophrenic, you know, not schizophrenic, we're trizophrenic. Our body is not in alignment with our mind, and our mind is in alignment with our emotions. They're all like off. And I find that to be very true. So you can look at this yourself, but I'll just quickly go through it, and you can read it later. So we really start out talking about what is a cultural mystic, and what is it that keeps us separate and glued to this Cartesian, Newtonian, mechanistic world that says, you know, I'm an object in a world of objects, and beginning to learn the basic alchemical tools for shifting our consciousness and changing the dark, heavy lead consciousness into golden consciousness. And right from the beginning, a real in-depth work with the body and how that relates to belonging and the basic way that we form ourselves, and how we can open our vessel to integrate those past traumas. And then we work a lot with the emotions. And I distinguish the emotions from the mind. A lot of people say, oh, I'm really angry, I'm really scared, I'm really sad. But it's an emotion of the mind, very different than an emotion of the body. So we'll work in that area, and then really look at thoughts and how to cultivate stillness and how to use the practices to do that. All of these will have practices. Then really important to cultivate what I call relational intimacy. How do we relate to ourselves, and how do we relate to others and be able to hold them in ourselves and actually feel the feelings and build our capacity for compassion. And the vision and action piece is really interesting, because I try to take it out of the doing sphere and put it in the being sphere, so that it isn't, there's so much craziness about, I need to find my vision, I need to find my purpose in life. Well, you're living it. It's here. It's never somewhere else. Your purpose is always right here. And there are just barriers to you fulfilling on it, but it's not somewhere to get to out there. It's really about becoming so present and so in your body that what you do, you begin to recognize yourself as the universe looking at itself. Imagine that you're the eyes that the universe created to look at itself. That's a whole different view of vision and purpose and action that we get into. And then we'll work with deepening practices. And I have a little book I wrote a long time ago, Living a Shamanic Way of Life. Some of you may have had it. That's something you get. And then a couple interviews that you get with it. And no, this is not a $750 million package that you get for only $2.99. No, this is just the stuff that comes with getting in the course. It just makes me crazy when I see they add all these things up and say this is a $1,700 value for $49. No, it's just the price it is, and I'm just who I am. And here's some things that people have said at the bottom about being some of them are people like Sandra Ingerman and Itzhak, but most of these are just students. Why isn't this moving? Students, what they've said about the course. So that's the course. And like I said, I'd love for you to participate, and the early registration is up. And I just want to come back here, stop the share. And just as we're coming towards the end, I want to see if there's any other questions that you have, or any comments or any questions about the course and whether it's right for you, or about the meditation. Looks like I'm frozen again. Are you able to hear me? Everybody able to hear me, even if I'm frozen? Yes, no? Thumbs up if you can hear me. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, great. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, probably not a good idea to sit outside when the internet's inside. Sorry. So anyone have any questions? You want to raise your hand, or anything that you want to ask, or if you're looking at the course or either of the things that need more information or something, I'm here and available. So yeah, David, please. Hi.
Hi, Michael. Are you hearing me?
I can. I can't
Hearing
see
me?
you, but I can hear you.
I was at the library, and are you hearing me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, good. I was at the library, and it wasn't the story about a book falling off the shelf, but it was the first book my eye went to recently, and I'd just like a brief comment from you on this, because it moved me quite deeply. it was called, a fairly new book. It was called The Lost Art of Dying. I'm about your age, and I don't think I'm as vigorous as you are, but I guess what's been occupying my mind lately has been what are the factors that might go into uh, an honorable or a death that's contributing something to the state of the planet right now. Because I was thinking for quite some time about how one answer to the big problem that we have on the earth would be, actually, it's a bit coarse to think of, but would be a massive decrease in the population might contribute something. And I'm getting to the point where I'm thinking I wouldn't mind finding my own way to contribute to that if I could. And I'm more and more active in taking care of business, for one thing, that will make it easier for me to leave. But this book is quite astounding, because as a culture right now, we're quite far from what past cultures have been in understanding an intelligent approach to death.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about that?
Oh, I have lots. I have another hour and a half. Why don't you turn your mic off, because I'm getting an echo here, and I'll respond to that. So, yeah, death is, in the mystical arts, of course, a very important aspect. And the idea is that we need to die every day, and to die to our story, to die to our beliefs, and to awaken to not knowing and being able to embrace the uncertainty of it all. So it teaches us to embrace uncertainty and attachment to life. That's not the word I was looking for, but so the issue of death, in the Tibetan Book of Death and many other is a great book for preparation for death. I want to say something a little bit off that, in that everything that we do and say and think contributes to the field of consciousness, which will be here after we're gone. And so if you're living in a lot of negativity and anger and blame and guilt, that's feeding the field. But by the same token, if you're cultivating compassion and love and respect for the web of life, that impacts. So whatever happens, if there's a massive die-off in this time, that's very possible, that could happen. But just to know that each moment that we are feeding the field of consciousness, and that isn't going anywhere. The field of consciousness will remain, regardless of, even if the human race were wiped off, that field of consciousness that we draw on and that we feed in every moment is always here. And so that's more the focus I have around death, is how can I purify my seeing so that everything I see is God. Everything I see is spirit. Everything I see is the beauty that surrounds me. And that will shift the great ship of state. Bucky Fuller used to say, I'm trim tabbing the great ship of state. I'm a little person, and in the ships of state, they have these huge rudders, and then there's these little things called trim tabs. And Bucky used to say, when you do something like that, it allows the rudder of the great ship of state to begin to turn. And I think of developing yourself that way as trim tabbing, and that goes into the field of consciousness. So death happens, and the more we can die to our ideas and our grasping and our neediness, the more we feed compassion and love out into the world. So that's what I have to say about it. I hope that's helpful, David.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, my loves, it's the end of this conversation. I'd love to do more. So if you like more and some subjects, I really enjoy interacting with you, and I'm just here for you. So please, if you aren't involved in my coaching or in, I do personal coaching, I do all these programs. At the end of this Way of the Mystic, we'll start another advanced or extend. Nobody wants to leave the advanced mystics program, so we may have to just include people into the one we have now, but really love to have you participate. And I'm a little overwhelmed sometimes with the amount of correspondence I get, so if you write me, please be patient, because I get a crazy number of emails every day and still work with my coaching and consulting and all the other things. So, and I'm probably going to start my radio show again soon. I took a break. So I just, in closing, I feel that there's a connection that we created here. And I just want to honor the sacredness of this connection, and to have the work that we do, not just individually, but collectively, be a force in the world for transformation, for transcendence, and for bringing back a world that, bringing forth a world that works for all of life, with all plants, all animals, all beings, to live um, um, to the fullest extent of their incarnation, and fully step into why you're here. Fully step into your own song. What is your song? I'll kind of leave you with that. What is your song? We each have a song, and I invite you to sing that song loud and full on, and that will get you to your original goodness, your yeah, your original goodness, your essential self. So thank you for taking the time to be with us today, and I send out much love and much gratitude to you. So for now, we're gonna call this an end, but write me. Like I said, it might take a little while to get back to you, but let me know what you need, and hope to see you in the next course. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Ew.
No. I got that. Thanks. Bye.